If you've ever found yourself staring at your planner, knowing exactly what you should do, but feeling totally blocked, overwhelmed, or just not yourself, today's conversation is for you. We're talking about the power of intuitive productivity, emotional regulation, and what it really means to come home to yourself as a woman in business. Welcome back to Productive AF, the podcast for high potential women, late bloomers, and second act entrepreneurs who are done with burnout and ready for real sustainable progress. I'm your host, Jenn Fast, and today we're diving deep into a topic that's close to my heart: how intuition and spiritual practices can actually fuel productivity, especially for those of us who crave more than color-coded to-do lists. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Diana Dorell. Diana is a third-generation medicine woman, intuitive relationship counselor, and spiritual mentor based in Arizona. She's helped hundreds of women move from overwhelm to clarity by blending practical tools with deep, soulful wisdom. Diana, welcome to Productive AF.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be so much fun. I already know it.
Well, before we jump into all things intuition and productivity, can you tell us a little more about your journey? What drew you into this work, and what exactly do you do?
Yes, of course. I actually started out as a psychic. I was living in San Francisco and learned how to use my intuition to do readings. And I always thought it was so funny because I remember my good friend Zach took me to a workshop and he said, we're going to use these things called oracle cards. I'm like, okay. And I knew what card was going to go down before it did. And he looked at me and he was like, I know you're doing this for fun, but you could really like do this. And so, I come from a long line of healers and clairvoyance, but it never was really a part of my business until I would say like my late 20s and early 30s. And I found over and over again that women who were high achieving, very accomplished, but didn't necessarily trust their inner voice kept coming to me primarily for relationships, but also for business. And what I found is like the same voice, right? Our intuitive voice, it's like it goes across any area of our life. So if there's a certain area that you're doubting yourself in, just shifting one area can shift the whole. And so, I kind of transitioned from being a psychic slash oracle reader into more of a coach. So I got certified as a life coach. And again, the themes kept coming: relationships, self confidence, business. How do I trust myself? How do I get past this feeling like I'm doing so much, but yet I feel so empty on the inside? And that's really my mission in the world, is to help women to really activate their feminine power, their feminine knowing, and live lives that really make them feel lit up from the inside out so that you can magnetize anything you want, whether that's a soulmate relationship, whether that's, a new friendship, and certainly in business if you want to really use your natural energy and not go against yourself. And that's the space that I play in.
Well, that was so fascinating. And I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that in a minute. But let's get into intuitive productivity, which might sound a little woo to people hearing it for the first time. But I know we're both all about blending intuition with executive function friendly systems. How do you define intuitive productivity, and why does it matter for women in our community?
Yes. So intuitive productivity to me means you are using your natural energy, like what feels most natural and aligned for you, to get the highest quality work out of yourself, out of others, out of delegation, and really not fighting yourself. If we were to just distill it down, is like, how do you stop fighting what's natural for you and maximize what is so that you can get more done? And it's really important because especially at like the C-suite level, a lot of my clients are in the C-suite level, or they're, business owners, and they have a lot of people that answer to them and like just managing a ton. And if you are letting your energy go in a billion directions and kind of in more reactivity versus response, you're going to burn out. It's just the way it is. And so, if there's any tools that I can offer, right, these women to slow it down, even if the outside world and the demands are very fast paced, is reframing and normalizing the slowdown internally that's going to help you to be the most effective in every part of your business. So, the tools that I'm going to share today are going to be a blend, certainly, of maybe some that you've already heard, but from a different angle, and then also some unconventional strategies that, my clients have used to really maximize productivity and trust themselves.
I can completely agree and second the experience of like highly successful people. I was actually the executive assistant to several C-suite executives over the last 10 years. That gave me the opportunity to see what is it that makes them successful, what sets them apart, and watched a lot of them put too much on the plate and burn out and get
Yeah.
confused and get overwhelmed. And funny enough, found myself in that same situation just a few months ago, burned out, had
Mhm.
enough. It was affecting my physical health. And I ended up just quitting. I just left and
Wow.
decided it
Yes.
was time to focus on my own health and my family and starting a business of my own. And so that's kind of how I even arrived at this moment. One thing I definitely agree about is the executives that can stay in the game and be very successful at it are the ones that can slow down, prioritize, get clarity,
Mhm.
and have a strategy in place for handling these situations. I know that my listeners love a practical takeaway. You just mentioned some tools that you're going to share with us. What's
Yes.
one ritual or tool that you use to help women tune into their intuition, especially when they're feeling emotionally dysregulated or overwhelmed?
Yes. So I have an acronym for your listeners or watchers, and
Please.
the acronym is PRODUCE. So if you are a note taker and you're listening, like you can just put PRODUCE down the line, and we'll just go through them because some of them connect to the other. So the first is we already spoke to it very briefly, but it is prioritizing what deserves your attention. Right. And I use that word deserves because it's about rewiring ourselves from an identity of overfunctioning, from an identity of my worth or my success only comes with, I'll give an example, like how fast I respond to emails, how fast I can put out those fires, how fast, somebody sees me as helpful or the problem solver. And if we dismantle all of that, to trust your intuition is first about noticing, what your vision is. What's your desired feeling in any given situation? I want to feel calm. I want to feel in control, right? I want to feel um successful. Okay. Then based on that and looking at my mile long to-do list, which ones are in the A priority? And I always suggest to my clients, get into your body. So if it's wiggling your toes, right? If it's taking a couple of deep breaths, later on, I'm sure we'll talk about I have a free gift for all of you. It's a meditation to help you get out of your head, and it uses binaural beats. That's something I do every single day that really helps me to kind of stay out of overactivation and into grounded presence, which is that space of your intuition. But prioritize what gets your attention and don't apologize for it, right? It's not to say that everything on the list is just, not important, but some are just not important as others, and it's okay. The R in produce is reducing distractions. So, alongside prioritizing what gets your attention, you also know yourself better than anybody, right? What distracts you? For me, it's social media. I have to have social media off, right? If there's something that's like a high priority task or like requires a lot of mental focus or creativity from me, because I can't help it, right? My reptilian brain is curious. What's going on? So reducing distractions. And then the O is operating, and this is a very powerful tip if you can be consistent with it, is operating within your prime energy window. So for the first, I would say, let's say 7 days for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to invite everybody to track your energy levels. When do you feel most like creative and alive? For me, it's like mid-morning, like anywhere from, about 9 to noon, I can get so much stuff done. And it's also when people want most of my attention. So I've had to like consciously delay responding until the afternoon because I know that's my high productivity window. Now, this isn't always um, going to be perfect, right? Because depending on the nature of your job. But again, it's just first is to track it. Some of my clients are night owls. So I'm like, okay, if you have a big presentation to do, logic would tell us do it in the morning, get it over with. But if you're a night owl, use that midnight window, midnight to 1 a.m. You'll probably bang it out in 10 minutes. Whereas if you tried to do it in the morning, it would take you 2 hours. So you have to know what actually is your energy. And when you can operate within that and do your highest priority tasks in that window, oof, you can get so much done with with energizing, right? Energizing yourself. So I think a lot of the reframing is a task is going to take something from me versus a task is going to energize me when I'm doing it from that intuitive productivity vibe. And then it's like, ooh, what's next? What's next? How can I batch stuff? How can I do all three of these things at the same time in a creative way? So we covered three of them, but I want to slow down, Jen, and see because there's more.
No, those are wonderful so far. I'm really resonating with the O and what you said about going with your energy when it comes to productivity. I think that was my one of my major misalignments when I was still working in a corporate environment was I was on somebody else's schedule. I had to attend meetings at the
Yes.
time they sent the meeting request, and I had to make sure that I got up early and commuted, and there was all these constraints on my time. But now that I'm away from that kind of life, I can set my own schedule, and I'm finding out where my energy is leading me, just like you. I'm a morning person. I do my best work and have the most focused first thing in the morning before breakfast. After that, my energy kind of dips through the day, and by evening my brain is so tired that I can't do anything that requires focus. But what I am in the evening is really creative. I like to work in
Mm.
Canva and design things and think about colors and stuff. So that definitely resonates for me. I can't wait to hear the last few.
Yes, I love that you know that about yourself. And actually, before I go to the next ones, for people that are in more traditional jobs, right, where you just described, where like maybe you are at the mercy of your boss or you are at the mercy of something that's set up, then it's going to be really important to like front load your day before you get to work with things, right, that feed you and nourish your soul. So things like meditation or going for a walk or exercising, right? Before the world gets to you, treat yourself as that priority. And that sends a signal to, and this is a bit woo, but sends a signal to the universe, wow, like she is an important person, right? She's taking care of herself. And you may find, I've had this happen with clients, they're like, that meeting got rescheduled like permanently. Or, it's like, it's bumped off my list forever. They hired somebody else and, put me more in my genius zone. And that kind of stuff is the magical effect, I will say, of treating yourself like the priority that you are. So, moving into the D is dialing into your intuitive voice. Everybody has one. It's not this airy fairy thing that's reserved for the professional psychics only. And one thing you can do is ask yourself this question: what is this moment for? I still ask myself this when I am in a frenetic zone where my ADHD, right, is trying to focus on four things at once and like not getting anywhere. It's like, okay, what is this moment for? And it might be something so simple. It'll say, make that call, go eat, get off Facebook, right? Let that person know you're teaching this. It's so precise. And that our brain loves to answer questions. So if you can ask it a question, you will get an answer. And the more you ask it, the more that you are in tune with your intuition and you can stop putting focus on things that just are distractions in the moment. So it all ties, these tips all tie in together. So think about how different your day is going to feel when you've identified what your prime energy is. You're doing what lights you up, and maybe the tasks that are even boring, but that are necessary to furthering your vision in that window. And if you get stuck or you get distracted, you can ask yourself that question: what is this moment for? And then it reorients you immediately, and then you can keep going. So the U is understanding the payoff. How does doing XYZ task support, right? Again, your bigger vision, your bigger why. And if you don't know what that is, then go back to the beginning and get clear on that first, right? Because then without that, you are going to be in reaction to what everybody wants from you. The world is greedy, let's face it. People want something from you all the time, and it's our job, right, to really teach people how to treat us and how to honor our time because we are. And then the C in produce is calendar some creative play. Jen and I were talking about how, we both have like had a little bit more fun with our families, and just a little bit of spontaneous just play is really, really exceptional for being productive, right? Not everything has to have an ROI. And that is one of the biggest lessons I had to learn, right? Moving from a traditional job into my own business is, gosh, fun? Like, what's that? Like, I mean, everything's fun when you're doing your own thing, but even that, it's like you do need some conscious boundaries so that you are feeding your personal life and your personal hobbies. And that actually makes you more magnetic and helps you get more done. So, calendar in some silly fun time that has, no productivity attached to it. And then the last one, you guys, the E is elevating your environment. Now, we could do a whole other show just on this topic alone, but bringing in the spirituality piece of this, I love enhancing my home office with different things to help me, right, set intentions and stay productive. A few of my favorites is an essential oil diffuser. And if you struggle with focus, let's say in the morning, um, the scent of orange is really powerful. So any kind of citrus or orange blend would be really good to have in your space. It literally wakes your brain up and it gives that fresh energy if you've been stagnant on a project and you need it. Like, I know nowadays they even sell those roll on like essential oil things that you can put and you can smell it and like, okay, let me look at this from a different angle. So that's something I do. The other thing is working with crystals. So if you just want something really easy that you don't have to manage a lot, I love selenite. So it's like this milky white stone. You can find it at any metaphysical store. It's not always in this shape. It can be any size, right? Have them in different shapes. But holding this is the one of the only crystals on earth that doesn't need to be cleared. So it actually is self-clearing. And if you have other crystals or jewelry that you wear often, putting it next to the selenite for like 24 hours will automatically clear whatever it touches. So I have two by my workstation, right? Along with an EMF reducing pad underneath my monitor. So these are just really practical, but also spiritual tools that you can use to enhance your space, that will kind of combat a lot of that frenetic energy that's in our everyday world, let's face it. So there you have it. Produce, prioritize what gets your attention, reduce distractions, operate from your prime energy window, dial into the moment, right? What is this moment for? Understand the payoff. Why are you doing what you do? Calendar some creative play, and then finally energize your environment.
Wow, you just completely lit up my brain, and I'm so glad that I'm recording this because now I can play it back, hit pause, and take some notes of some of the things that you said. I got I got most excited about a couple of those really resonated, especially when I was working supporting executives and busy people, and some of the ways that I helped them kind of set themselves up for success. did include kind of setting up their environment to be optimal. I wanted
Mm.
their office to be a place that was serene and a haven. And you know what? I would bring in a blanket and drape it, behind their chair. So if they got
Yes.
chilly, they had a comfort item. Art that resonates, photos of their family and art that their kids did was something that really centered them and reminded them why they're even there. Like, why are you coming into work every day? And I do this in my home office as well, make sure that there are plants and natural sunlight. All of that resonated with me. But I love also going back to the C, the calendaring, because as you know, an executive assistant lives and dies by the
Yes.
calendar. And now that I'm not one, I am one for myself, and that my calendar is blocked out with some fun time, but also self-care time. Like, when do I plan on eating throughout the day? It's actually in my calendar, so it reminds me to eat because my ADHD brain, when I focus in on something, I will exclude all else, including hunger cues and needing
Me
to use the
too.
bathroom or any of that. And then I schedule in workout times and a break in the middle of the day to go for a walk outside in the sunshine.
Yes. So
So don't
good.
forget to calendar that time in as well. And speaking of calendars and juggling, so many of us are juggling business and family and a million transitions throughout the day. What are the most common challenges you see among women who feel stuck or off? And how do you help them get back to center?
Yeah. So I would say one of the big things that I see a lot is just plain overcommitment and examining where that's coming from. Right. So what happens? Like we'll have the dialogue. Well, what happens if you say no? And oftentimes they're like, "What? I can say no." I'm like, "Just stay with me for a second." And they're like, "Oh, like, I can miss out on this opportunity, or so and so might get mad." And all of a sudden, I'm talking to like more of the inner child versus the like buttoned up, in control, have it all together CEO. And so looking at where is your drive coming from in any decision, and seeing like, is it actually something that like you want to do, or is it something that you feel like you're doing in defense, right? In defense of a potential backlash or potential judgment. And the more that you can get comfortable with saying no, actually just saying the word no, right? It may feel weird. And I often say like it's very common to be in control in one area of our life and to feel very out of control in another. So the pattern that I'm seeing with a lot of my clients is like, again, career, business, they seem to have it all together. But then personal relationship to themselves, right? Maybe health, maybe something else. They feel like a little girl and they feel really bad about that, like that disparity. When really it's just, right? That little girl or little boy in us just needs that reassurance. It's okay to not have it all together. It's okay to say no. And the more that you can say no to the smaller things, the bigger things are much easier. And then your yes means something so much more powerful. So it's like, wow, when somebody says yes, like it's a full body yes. Because whenever we say yes and we really mean no, that other person or that organization, they get a diluted part of us, right? They don't get the full experience. And that's kind of out of integrity, right? And when I reframed it like that for my clients, they're like, ooh, because integrity is a big thing. So hold out for the absolute yes if you can and practice saying no. That would be my number one tip.
Agreed. For me, especially if you've not had a lot of practice saying no, or you're afraid of negative consequences of saying no, sometimes you just need to practice it more or
Yeah.
use a different word. Use a not right now, but here was what I can offer you, or afraid I can't do that today, but, and then the other thing is realizing that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify yourself at all if you say no to someone, and your tone of voice will matter, of course. You always want to be gentle with someone, but I feel that sometimes you just need that practice in saying no in the way that's authentic to you.
And here's the clincher, Jen. First, we have to practice saying no to ourselves, right? It's like, Oh, you wanna go distract yourself with this last minute invitation when you know you have this priority? Like, you have to say no to yourself, like, no to that part of our brain that's like shiny object syndrome all the damn time, right? And there's that self-discipline and self-love that comes into play. So, yeah, start where you are. We're all imperfect. We're all doing this life imperfectly, and that's part of the fun too.
It is, yes. And one thing that helps me with saying no, especially to myself, is by saying no to this, what am I saying yes to? What
Exactly.
opportunity am I giving myself? Is it free time? Is it the ability to say yes to something else? Is it the ability to prioritize something that will move me forward towards my goals? So that's been helpful. Yeah.
Exactly, and that loops back to our you, right? Understand the payoff, and when those random things come in, it's like, "Ooh, that would be fun, but would I feel worse about myself if I didn't continue and follow through with this other thing? Okay, maybe I can say yes the next time." Or, "You know what? I feel like I'm in a good stopping place with this. I will come back to it after I say yes to this." Like, there it's not a perfect system, but I think the intention is the most important.
Agree. Yes. Getting a little bit personal now. Can
Yeah.
you share a moment from your own journey where you had to practice what you preach? Maybe a story where intuition made all the difference.
Okay, so what's coming up is I remember I remember that my friend was speaking at a really big event in New York City. And I saw that they were still accepting like speakers. And this was like at the beginning of my business. And I'm like, I'm so not qualified for this at all. But like my whole body was like, just apply, right? Like just go for it. And so I did have to override some, fears and insecurities, and I filled out the form, and it was also like one of the first times that I publicly said I'm a psychic. Like, like who's going to see that in my, former other lives, and then I got rejected, and it was weird. I got like an acceptance email, and then like 2 minutes later I got a rejection email, and I'm like, "What? Like which one is it?" Again, the power of discernment. And here's where it gets really funny. I didn't really know how to properly use, at the time, Twitter. So I am bold and I think I'm DMing the organizer of this event. I got an email and no, 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 and this is why I really feel like I'd be a good speaker. I'm a little confused. The whole conversation was on his wall with his like 100,000 followers. And I'm like, oh Lord. And my friend had to point this out. So, but again, I was listening to my intuition, and snafu aside, he was like, "That was a mistake. You actually are supposed to be in the lineup. Thank you for messaging me." And I was like, "Oh my God." So I ended up appearing like in one of my first speaking engagements in New York, talking about intuition and basically being outed as a psychic, outing myself in a way that I didn't expect. So sometimes you just have to go for it, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty, but if it's supposed to be, it will. And something great will always come out of it when you are just following that nudge.
It was a great example. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It just so happens that one of our core values here is progress over perfection. Zero shame,
Oh,
all lived
see,
experience. In fact, I usually say there is no failure, only feedback. So that's something to think about.
I love
Um,
that.
how do you help your clients and yourself release shame and perfectionism so they can actually move forward?
Yes. So I am really good at tuning into a person's energy. And this is where the psychic piece is still very much in my practice. At channeling a specific like forgiveness mantra is what I call it, but you can call it like an affirmation that I will have them repeat and do some EFT tapping on for 30 days, because shame comes in layers. It's not just the surface thing that they think it is. There's stuff and emotions underneath that. So all we're trying to do is normalize, right? And like give more energy and attention to that sensitive part and reassure it, because it just wants to feel safe. It just wants to protect you. it knows logically it doesn't need to hang around, but it's still there, right? And we all have it. So using forgiveness rituals and mantras and EFT is one of my go-to techniques with clients and also myself. But the bigger piece of that is knowing that, if you feel ashamed of some part of your past or the way that you chose to show up in a certain situation, it doesn't have to be a whole identity, right? It can be, like you said, a moment in history that actually really changed you at the molecular level and right? And got you to the point that you are here, right? Like observing it and looking at it. People that don't care, people that, don't have integrity and morals, they don't ever stop to try to address the shame. They just keep on going. And so the fact that you are wanting to address it says a lot about you. And that's a just like that self-love piece of wow, I really acknowledge that this is a sensitive part of me and I'm ready to shift it. And that starts with self-acceptance.
Shame is a tough one. I think we've all felt it. For me, it usually comes from mistakes, that I've made in the
Yes,
past.
me
But
too.
I also, yeah, I try to reframe it too, and think, okay, as long as I learned from it, it's not a failure. It's feedback. But I also try to remember that my past mistakes don't have to be a life sentence. It's
Yes.
important.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really good. I love that. Yeah, because oftentimes, right, we'll beat ourselves up and it's like we need to punish ourselves more, even though like the event is long gone and whoever was involved like maybe doesn't even think about it or care, but we do. And so, yeah, giving yourself permission to close the loop energetically and emotionally and say, wow, that had its place in my story. And now, right, I'm ready to take the best parts of that experience and become a more elevated and aligned version of myself. So thank you, shame. Thank you for all of the lessons.
I think another thing that helps, us move on from those past mistakes or those shameful moments is remembering to celebrate like the wins and the good stuff. We spend so much time focusing on the negative. I think we need to focus more on the good parts and the things that we did right. So here I like to talk a lot about celebrating even messy wins, even the ones
Mm.
that we're not perfect and maybe we're a hot mess and maybe they seem small to us, but the more you celebrate them, the more you reframe a negative experience in your life. What's a small imperfect win that you've celebrated recently?
Hmm. So I told you at the beginning, right? Like I already know myself and social media can be my time suck sometimes. And it's also fun for me. So it's like a love-hate relationship. But I recently made the decision to experiment with deleting the apps on my phone for the weekend. And it was interesting, right? Like I had that impulse, like an addict. I'm like, but is that fair? Or like, should I just put it on for 2 minutes to see if someone responded to that one post? Should I go on my desktop? And my husband's like, we're leaving. Like, we're going to the restaurant. Like, it's going to be okay. So I was able to do, 24 hours. It wasn't perfect. I did put the app back on the next day and noticed, right? And was loving with myself. Why am I going on today? Today's Sunday or whatever it was. Okay, maybe next weekend we'll try 2 days again, right? But let's celebrate the one day that you had some mental bandwidth and freedom and experience the discomfort of withdrawal.
It is worth celebrating. I'd like to shift our focus a little bit towards community, culture, and legacy. You come from a long line of healers and you've built your own community with the Goddess Circle Collective. How do
Yes.
culture, community, and generational wisdom show up in your work, and why do they matter for women in business?
Such a great question. The women in my Goddess Circle Collective are from many different generations and also different backgrounds. So, one of the big focuses of my work is celebrating goddesses in history, right, from different backgrounds. So, like some months, right, we will look at like a Roman goddess, and other months we'll look at an African goddess, and extracting like how can we embody that energy in modern day life as women that are very, very busy. And so it's always kind of the framework, right, is about inclusion and about drawing upon different cultures, even if it's not our own. And so how can we bring, right, the parts of our lineage? We talk a lot about healing our lineage and also celebrating the gifts of our lineage. So my background is Colombian and Venezuelan, very rich in tradition. And we've got, like I said, ladies from all over. Some are from, London, and others are from, you know, LA. And so we each bring our own little flavor. But even in the private work that I do, a big part of moving past your blocks to manifesting, whether it's the relationship or birthing a business for the first time after going through a transition, it does have to do with looking at the maternal and paternal lines and facilitating, right, some healing work and some repair in the family system so that you're not carrying a lot of the trauma with you in this iteration, right? And also celebrating the gifts that were given to you as well. So it's not about one or the other. It's like, let's integrate the best parts, release the parts that are no longer needed, and move forward.
I love that you're building your own community and making it a place where you welcome other women into it. That's so
Yes.
cool. For other listeners who are craving a deeper connection but aren't sure where to start, what's one step they can take this week?
Yeah. So deeper connection, are we talking about with themselves or
I think it can
at
mean both,
large
or
or
with other people or with themselves. Yeah.
yeah. So it always comes back to our relationship with ourselves. So I would say the first step is to look at where you are avoiding yourself, right? Like where are we distracting ourselves from feeling something? What are we using to distract ourselves? And that is going to give you some clues as to how you can love yourself deeper and connect with yourself deeper, which in turn is going to make you feel safer to, right, to be bold and to maybe initiate conversations in spaces where you ordinarily would pull back or expect somebody to like say hi to you. Like I'm thinking like networking events or even online spaces where you're like maybe you've been lurking and you're like, but I really want to get to know these women. You've got to let people know that you're there. And so I think being seen and being visible is something that we're all, right, works in progress, but it starts with feeling safe within your own body. So looking at the distractions first, making one micro adjustment there, and then taking one bold action when you're guided or inspired to get curious about another woman or another, organization or whatever it is.
Advice. So, are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. What's your favorite way to reset when you're feeling overwhelmed?
Smells, essential oils, make some gluten-free pumpkin pancakes, light a candle.
That's a good one. What's one myth about intuition you'd love to bust right now?
That it always has to feel good.
Mm.
Sometimes our intuition gives us messages we don't want to hear. But the difference between, and we could do another show on this, like the difference between your fear voice and your intuitive voice. The intuitive voice may deliver, right, guidance that you know deep down, but you're not ready to accept. But the voice will always feel neutral. Whereas our fear voice will be the spiky, like, oh my God, I should do this. And then, like, 2 seconds later, it's like, but I don't know. And it's like, it's very dependent on our moods. Whereas our intuition is like this, even if the news is uncomfortable.
I'm going to start paying closer to it, attention to my inner voices now. Thank you. If you could give your younger self one piece of wisdom about self trust or reinvention, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. The first thing that comes is wear bright colors. Who cares? Wear brighter colors, wear what you think, makes you feel really good, even if it's a little weird.
And there's just one more. My favorite question that I ask all of my guests. If our listeners walked away with only one message from this conversation, what do you hope that is?
Trust yourself, love yourself. Everything else follows that.
Very profound. Diana, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your story, and your tools with us today. For
My
anyone who wants
pleasure.
to connect with you or dive deeper, where's the best place to find you online?
Yeah, so grab your free meditation. You can get it right on my website. Go to thedancinggoddess.com. It's right there. And Jen will put it in the show notes, and that will start your journey. And, you are welcome to also reach out to me on social. And I would love to get to know you better and connect.
Thank you. We'll, of course, link all of Diana's resources in the show notes, including her Goddess Circle Collective and her signature meditation. If you found value in this conversation, please share it with a friend. Leave a 5-star review or let us know your biggest takeaway on any of the socials or in the comments on Substack. Remember, progress over perfection, celebrate your messy wins, trust your gut, and I'll see you next time on Productive AF.